Good morning. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about an incident that I had many, many, many years ago that shaped my perspective on being willing to stand up in front of a group of people and do a pre presentation of any type, basically, but specifically one in a class where a teacher was unwilling to give me an option for an alternative way to present my work. I posted recently, this past week, on my personal Facebook page, an article about the alarming numbers of middle and high school students that are facing legitimately diagnosed generalized or social anxiety disorders, and that many of these young people are self-advocating, which personally I believe is something we should be teaching our young people how to do. But many of the young people are advocating that they should be able to have an alternative way to present their knowledge of their classroom work, as opposed to standing in front of a classroom of peers and a teacher and having to present verbally if they have some type of an anxiety disorder. For some of you that may not know, I live in New York in the United States, so it is law that students in grades K through 12 that have disabilities be offered some form of reasonable accommodation so that they essentially have a level playing field when it comes to producing work like any other classmate would. So in this article, I likened the experience that some of these students were discussing to what it could be like for young people who stutter, that are also asked or told that you must present in front of your class in public speaking as part of a required class project or grade. And that sometimes teachers and adults in general feel that we should not give students, particularly those perhaps that stutter, that opt-out option, because then we're failing to teach them public speaking skills, which of course are crucial for success later on in life. And after high school, we would be talking about college and the workplace. So anyway, I just wanted to share really quickly a scenario that I had when I was in college. And disability and accommodation is treated differently in New York State anyway, in college than it is in elementary and middle and high school in New York. In college, I majored in so social work, which was not my vocation of choice. I felt that was the safer major to choose because of my stuttering. I actually wanted to be a teacher, but I felt that I would not be successful doing that because I stuttered. So therefore, I chose social work, wrongly thinking that there would be far less talking involved in that field. That's a long story for another day because that certainly turned out to be anything but true. But that day in college that I'm going to talk about here, it was my third year in college. So I was a junior in a social work class at a relatively small college. And I was to be presenting the findings of research that I did to my class of about 20 students, and of course the professor. And I had been obsessing about this for weeks before having to do this presentation. As a young person that stuttered, more pronouncedly than I do now, but as a young person who stuttered in my 20s, it was terrifying for me to consider standing up in front of the room and being that vulnerable and fearing being judged by my classmates and possibly laughed at because of the stuttering. So because I had been truly obsessing about this for weeks, I finally found the courage, which for me as a kid who stuttered, that was very covert, very quiet by choice, was a big deal for me to consider asking for help. But I did. I went to my professor and I was very upfront and I requested, was there some other way that the professor could assess my knowledge of the material rather than me having to present in front of the class. And the professor point blank said no, that if I did not do the presentation, I would have to take a 0 for the event. So I felt backed into a corner because I did not, of course, want to take a 0. That would have significantly harmed my grade. But I also felt strongly that by presenting in an anxious state and stuttering moderately to perhaps severely in that instance because of anxiety issues around this, that I would harm myself as well. But I felt I had no choice, and I went ahead and proceeded and did the presentation. It was horrible. It was humiliating. I stuttered on every word, and I was very conscious of that. And I remember feeling pained and almost choking as I was trying to get through the presentation. And I remember looking at my classmates who all had these pained expressions on their faces, like they either felt incredibly sorry for me because it was so awful, but at least they didn't have the nerve to laugh directly. And I remember glancing at my professor, who also had a pained look on her face, as if it was painful to hear me present. I felt humiliated as I did that presentation. I felt so vulnerable and fearful, and it seemed to take forever because I literally stuttered on every word. I was reading from notes. When I read, I tend to stutter more than just speaking extemporaneously. So anyway, I was able to get through the presentation, and towards the end, I had tears in my eyes because I was imagining what people were thinking. Maybe that wasn't true. Maybe they weren't thinking anything. But my reality of that situation was that they were thinking poorly of me. When I finished, because I had tears welling in my eyes, I panicked. I did not want to cry in front of my peers and my professor, who I felt really at that point had no compassion for me. I had asked for help and been denied. I walked out of the room, went to the bathroom that was right next door, and had a panic attack. And when I mean I had a panic attack, I was ventilating and crying at that point. And I took some of the brown paper bags that were in the bathroom stalls that were used for disposal of sanitary napkins, and use them to blow into the bag to try to regulate and calm my breathing. And what I remember most from that experience, not only was it humiliating, but the fact that I disappeared immediately afterwards and went into a bathroom that was only a door away from where the college classroom had been, and was clearly in trouble, having a panic attack. Nobody came to check on me. And I have always remembered that. I also always remembered that since that day, I vowed never to put myself in that horrible situation again. And I think that that was the beginnings of why I chose to do a deep dive into further hiding the fact that I stuttered. I did not want to go through that again. So I say all that to say this. I think sometimes adults believe that we are correctly pushing young people to do what they may be most scared of. But if a young person, and I work in a high school and have worked with young people for over 30 years, if a young person has a legitimate issue or disability, if you will, and has the courage to self-advocate and ask for assistance, and that assistance is denied in the guise of it's for your own good and you'll thank me later, I don't think that that's always the case. Because for me, being forced to do that and the ensuing panic attack alone in a bathroom, blowing into a brown paper bag that was intended for another purpose is a lifelong memory of mine that set the stage for me to never want to have an experience like that again. And I didn't recover from that experience until some 20 odd years later. So that's just some food for thought. I think sometimes it truly is important to listen to the young person that is asking for help and consider what you can do as an adult, as an educator, as a teacher, as a counselor, as a professional. What can you do to help that young person so that they don't experience the humiliation and the loneliness sitting on a toilet in a bathroom, hyperventilating in a paper bag all by themselves. Thank you.